Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. What a crazy day it's been. We started off the day thinking Kenny Golladay, this person, that person. The Giants are interested in Leonard Floyd and all these players going off the board. And here we are, Leonard Williams, extension later, and a John Ross signing. And you know, I'm pretty excited. At least we got some action today. It looked like it was going to be another dull day in the Giants' land. But nonetheless, we got the extension done for Leo. We're going to talk about that. John Ross talked a little bit about what he offers this team and he brings to the Giants squad. As a 4-year veteran coming off an injured season, only played a couple games last year. So it is a little disappointing, but I do think the Giants are in a good spot to maximize a player of his potential. You know, John Ross is a former first-round pick. The Patriots do the similar things. They get, cost-efficient contracts, injured guys, bring them in, make them productive again, give them a second chance, get them into good coaching systems. The Bengals, historically the past couple of years haven't had the best coaching, haven't had the best team. So John Ross, hitting the restart button, might be able to compete with Darius Slade and maybe win a wide receiver 4 battle. We'll see what happens. There was a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. But of course, we're going to dive into Kenny Golladay, the rumors around there, a couple more things we think the Giants should do this offseason, and the impact of Leonard Williams' extension, especially when it comes to the cap space they did create. But Anthony, my friend, how has your free agency day been?
It's been exciting. It's been interesting. I got to say, I'm very happy that the Giants got this deal done with Leonard Williams. That was really huge. I think you already discussed it, but I'm going to give my take on it. I think that the Leonard Williams signing, here's what I'll say. I think it was structured incredibly well. I think, the $8 million cap hit in year one is so clutch and such a great move. And shout out Kevin Abrams, because apparently he's the guy who made that happen. So shout out Kevin Abrams. Great job there. I will say I had a very strong opinion on Twitter and in one of the last videos about rescinding the franchise tag. I still believe that would have been the best course of action and would have gotten that number underneath $21 million. $21 million a year is steep for Leonard Williams. It's a lot of money, but I understand they didn't want him to hit the open market because they did not want to lose him, right? I don't think they would have. I think it would have brought his price tag down, but I'll just say that. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's in the past. I'm just happy that Leonard Williams is back in Big Blue. That's my main takeaway from this. We've got our star interior pass rusher back, and I'm very excited for that. I think he's going to have a huge year, and I think he will play up, at least to some extent, to that big contract. And again, I love the way it was structured. It cleared a lot of cap space for us for this current offseason. And of course, that has everybody thinking, does that mean we're going to make a run after Kenny Golladay? We're one of 3 teams that have shown interest, apparently, or significant interest. There's been 6 teams that have shown interest, apparently, according to, I think, Benjamin Albright. But 3 teams have been really serious about it, and we are one of them. And it seems like one of them might have actually just taken themselves out of the race with a wide receiver signing, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think it takes them out of the race. We'll get into that, Alex. But I'll briefly touch on the John Ross signing as well. I love it. I actually love that signing. I think that is such a nice high ceiling signing. He's $1 million guaranteed. That's a $1 million cap hit. That is nothing. That is literally chunk change. That is less than 1% of the salary cap. That is perfect signing. That is what you want to do. You want to take a chance on a guy like that, a guy who's first round talent, has a lot of talent, runs decent routes, has trouble with injuries, sure. Fastest player in the NFL. That's cool. We don't have a lot of speed on this offense right now. So you get that for $1 million, and he has the chance of maybe slipping into the starting lineup, or at the very least being a solid vertical threat if someone goes down with an injury. And another thing that this kind of indicates to me is that the Giants might be making an emphasis on going more vertical in 2021. We always talk about how they lacked a vertical passing attack. Maybe this addition might indicate that they want to get more vertical next year. They signed Dante Pettis towards the end of last year. They really started having Darius Slayton run a lot more vertical routes. And I think that now bringing in John Ross, it indicates that they recognize the weakness and flaw as well. Keep in mind, Freddie Kitchens moved into a new role this offseason. He got elevated to, I think, senior offensive assistant, so he's more involved with the game plan, and he ran a very vertical offense when he was with Cleveland as their head coach and offensive coordinator. So keep that in mind. I think that's something that it indicates. That's a takeaway that I have from the John Ross signing, which I love, as I said. And yeah, it's been a big day for the Giants. I think they actually did a lot of really great things, and I'm excited to see where they go from here now that we have some cap flexibility and now that we have our star player on defense locked in for the next 3 years.
Yeah, and let me give you a little, fact that's flying under the radar when it comes to Leonard Williams, and it's that $21 million might scare you, right? The $21 million may say he's overpaid right now, but there's another factor that people are forgetting about. Leonard Williams had a grievance filed with the Giants to the NFL that he should have been a defensive end when they franchise tagged him last year, which would have actually gave him a couple more $1 million. It looked like they may actually be able to win that battle. So if he would have won that, the Giants would have had to pay up that extra $1 million, that differential between defensive tackle. So the franchise tag essentially is the top 5 players at your position. The average of that is the price of the franchise tag, right? So the Giants' top 5 defensive tackles in the league, the average of all of them was $19.3 million. That's why that was the tag for Williams this year. Last year was a little bit less, obviously, but now they actually managed to drop the grievance because they overpaid him a little bit to compensate for that grievance that they filed. So they managed to kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. That's why it was a little bit more expensive. It's kind of hard to explain. But it was a good thing that the Giants did that, because if they didn't get that dropped and they ended up winning, it could have added an extra $3-4 million onto the cap this season that they couldn't get rid of. So they had to compromise. They had to pay him maybe a couple of million extra, spreading it out over a couple of years. And it helped them out. It really did lower the cap for them, and allowed them to lower that $19 million cap hit down to $11 million. So now it's only $11 million for the 2021 season. Most of the money will be backloaded to next year when they have a lot more space. And that's a good move for the Giants. Now they have a little bit more room to work with. And as Kenny Golladay, as Anthony said, he's still in the mix. Now, what I've seen and heard from the big guys on social and stuff, and really scouring the wire for information, is that there's a lot of teams in on Kenny Golladay, but the problem is they're really not in on him at an elevated price point. They're very specific with how much they're willing to pay, and they're worried about the injury history. When you're giving big money to a player like that, you want to make sure that they're healthy. They're going to pass their physical. He didn't play that many games last year, only 5 games. So this is a player that obviously highly touted. But if you're the Giants and you're going to sign a guy like Kenny Golladay and backload his contract, give him a big signing bonus, which is guaranteed money, you want to make sure he's going to be healthy if you're going to guarantee him all this money to lower the cap hit so you can still spend in free agency. That's the big concern. If they're going to do that, they need to be sure that he's healthy. They need to make sure he works out for them. That's probably what a lot of teams are doing, though, because players can only meet with the team starting on Wednesday, so they probably want him to come and work out with them before they sign him. That's the big contingency here that I think is actually going on. They want to see what he can actually do on the football field. They want to work him out, make sure he's good to go, and then sign him, and then give him that big term, that big long contract that people think he deserves. Now, Anthony, what do you think about that? What do you think about Kenny Golladay? Are you worried about the injury? Is that something we should be concerned about? Teams are obviously doing their due diligence with, but do you still think the Giants are in on him?
Yeah, I think the Giants are in on him, and I this is not really a bold take. This is kind of a gut feeling. I think the Giants are going to land Kenny Golladay. I think they cleared up this cap space, and I don't think there's any question that the Giants are significantly interested in. I don't think it's a coincidence that they're the only team that we've heard about having a meeting with his representatives. As soon as the legal tampering period started, we got news that the Giants were meeting with Kenny Golladay. That's not a coincidence. It's also not a coincidence that they tried to trade for him back in October. There's multiple things that are leading up to this, and it really looks like the Giants want Kenny Golladay, and I think that they do, and I think that they actually have a very solid chance of signing him. And bold take, I guess, I think they will. I think they're going to get it done. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not going to set my expectations too high, because even if they don't get him, I'm not going to be too upset, because I think that this is a loaded wide receiver class, and the Giants have set themselves up in a way where they can sign or draft a really solid wide receiver and really revamp their offense that way. So I think they've done a lot of good things here. I think Kenny Golladay is really interesting, but speaking to his injury, me personally, might be an unpopular opinion from me. Again, doesn't bother me. I'm not bothered by this one hip injury that he had. He took all that time off because he was playing in Detroit, basically playing in prison, and he didn't want to be on that field anyway. He declined like a $20 million per year contract from them. He did not want to be in Detroit. He didn't want to play there. He'd just rather get healthy for the offseason, sign with a new team, move on, fresh start. That's how I interpret that whole thing. Plus, it's one significant injury that he's had in his career. It's not like this is this has not happened multiple times. Sure, he missed a couple games in previous seasons, but this is the only time he's had a significant injury that's kept him off the field for an extended amount of time. And it's not like it was an ACL tear or a torn Achilles. It was a hip injury, which can be very serious. We've seen that. Bo Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa. Like, we've seen serious hip injuries, but it doesn't seem like Kenny Galladay's injury is that serious, right? It doesn't seem like his hip injury is anything that's going to keep him from being a great player once again. And I think that's exactly what he's going to be. He's going to step back in, be a phenomenal player. He is exactly what the Giants offense needed in 2020, but didn't have. Big body, Doesn't necessarily need to separate because he's so good at contested catches, and the Giants play a system where separation is kind of hard to come by. We don't really play a scheme that generates a lot of separation. A lot of it is contested catches. Kenny Golladay is perfect for that. And he goes vertical. He jumps over players. He's a red zone threat. He's exactly what Daniel Jones needs, and exactly what the Giants want. So I think if that's how they feel, I think they do feel that way since they tried to trade for him in October. I think they're going to do everything that they can to get him. I know that we've heard reports that apparently they're not going to do everything they can to get him. I don't know. I don't know what to believe with certain reports. We heard that, Leonard Williams and the Giants were super far off from a contract. 30 minutes later, they signed him, right? So that stuff happens. This is a very fluid situation with Kenny Golladay and with every free agent and with every team. But to me, there's so much that indicates that the Giants are serious about getting Kenny Golladay, trying to trade for him, meeting with him as soon as free agency starts, having continuous interest in him. I think that it's going to happen personally. Oh, and totally forgot to mention this. They just hired a guy from Detroit's general manager staff, right? They just hired a guy from Detroit's front office. Kyle O'Brien, I believe it is. He's going to play some senior executive position in the Giants front office. He knows all about Kenny Golladay. He definitely knows about his medical history. He knows where he is and where he's progressing with that injury. And he probably wants to bring Kenny Golladay over here. And I assume he has some say in the front office since he works for the Giants now. So I think there's a lot of dominoes that are falling into place. There's a lot that indicates that the Giants are serious about acquiring Kenny Golladay. Man, I really hope it happens. And low-key, I really think that it will.
See, I think you might be onto something, and let's just get one thing also out of the way. The Giants haven't made any big signings yet. They haven't made a big splash, which tells us maybe two different things. One is that maybe they don't like anyone on the market right now, or maybe they like someone so much they're willing to wait, and they're really doing their due diligence, making sure that they get their guy at the right price. I think Kenny Golladay has a big market, but what I will say is I think that teams are worried about the injury, even though it might not be that serious. I think that they want to work him out. They want to make sure he's good to go. And even so, I do think the Giants are still interested. And if it's not Kenny Golladay, it's Curtis Samuel. There's two guys in the market right now that they could land, and I would be 100% fine with. I really like Curtis Samuel. His versatility is awesome. That does not take the Giants out of a wide receiver in the draft, or even Kyle Pitts. I'm hearing that there could be 4 quarterbacks gone in the first 10 picks. That means Kyle Pitts could easily drop to the Giants. You never know. Wide receivers, tight ends, they always drop. Someone always goes. So we'll see what happens there, obviously. But Kenny Golladay, I'm on board for it. If the Giants could walk away this free agency with LW, John Ross, Kenny Golladay, and maybe a pass rusher, I would be very happy about that. And that leads me to the pass rusher situation because, this is a unit that really needs a little bit of support. Obviously, Lorenzo Carter and Ocean Ximenez will be returning in 2021, but we don't know really what they have. They both left the season with season-ending injuries. Ximenez had a shoulder issue, and Carter tore an Achilles against the Dallas Cowboys early on in the season. Who knows what they're going to look like when they get back? I feel good that they all come back and produce at least, adequately, but not above average. They might just settle at average, which makes me think, maybe we could use someone a little bit more refined, someone with a little bit more upside. And I think Hassan Reddick is the guy I've been talking about for a couple weeks now, a couple days at least. And he's the last one in the market that really catches my eye. Obviously Jadeveon Clowney's on the market, but I'm not going down that road after every year seems to be a disaster when it comes to him. But Anthony, what do you think about the pass rushers? Do you think Hassan Reddick should be an option for us?
Yeah, I said it before. I think Hassan Reddick is definitely the most intriguing option out of the edge rushers in the free agency class. I thought Bud Dupree was very interesting. I thought the contract that he got was very interesting from Tennessee. If that were me, I probably wouldn't have given that to Bud Dupree. I don't think he's really proven himself to be that kind of player. But, that's how they feel. Cool, good, happy for him. Moving on, Hassan Reddick. That's the number one edge that I want the Giants to target. Here's why. You look back to 2018, Shaq Barrett hits the open market. He's kind of an unknown. He's very underrated. No one's giving him a long-term deal. All that he's going to get is a 1-year prove-it deal. Same thing with Hassan Reddick. Maybe he's proven himself a little bit more than Shaq Barrett did at the time. Barrett was very young, was playing as pretty much a backup role, just kind of a rotational pass rusher, but was really good when he was on the field. He was rotating in with Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, right? So he was kind of getting buried on the depth chart, needed to go to a new change of scenery to really break out. Hassan Reddick actually got the chance to start a full season on the edge this year, so that's where those two players differ. But they're kind of the same because the contract situation for both of them, right? They're only going to get 1-year deals here, and neither one of them has hit their ceiling going into this free agency period, right? When Shaq Barrett entered free agency, he was unknown, right? Hadn't hit his ceiling, hadn't hit his prime yet. Hassan Reddick has played 1 season as an edge rusher. He had 12.5 sacks. Is that a fluke? Or can he sign somewhere, new change of scenery, and be a dominant edge rusher? That's what people are going to question, and that's why he's probably only going to get a 1-year deal. I'd assume 1 year, $8 million, maybe $10 million at the most. I think that's realistically what he gets. I think that's affordable for the Giants as well. And I think that they do that, and they hope that that one season was not a fluke, and it actually was just scraping the surface for him, like it was for Shaq Barrett when he hit the open market. He was just scraping the surface. You hope Hassan Reddick is actually going to break out in his second year playing edge rusher in the NFL, a position he played in college, moved to off-ball linebacker, had some struggles, back to the edge, played a lot better football. And I think that he could go to a new team, be on the edge full-time, be that number one pass rusher for a team, and actually put together a really solid second half of his career. And I think if he goes to the Giants playing on the edge in Patrick Graham's scheme, especially because of how versatile the edge rushers are in Patrick Graham's scheme, with, they drop back into coverage pretty frequently, and Hassan Reddick can do that. He has history playing off-ball linebacker. I think you could really see him break out in a whole new way, different from what he did last season in Arizona. I think you could see him break out in a whole new way, similar to how Shaq Barrett broke out for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when he signed with them. So Hassan Reddick, if they're going to sign an edge rusher, that's who I want them to sign. I really think there's a very high ceiling there, and I think that the floor is pretty high too because he's played two positions. So I think that would be a home run signing if they can get him on a 1-year prove-it deal and worry about extending him next offseason or letting him walk if he doesn't live up to the contract expectations.
And just to build on that, he fits the Giants mold well. He fits Joe Judge's mold well, and I'll tell you why. Like you mentioned, he is multiple. He can play off-ball linebacker. He can play pass rush role. He can do many different things for this defense. And if you look at any given player on the Giants, let's look at Leonard Williams. He can play 5-tech pass rusher. He can play nose tackle. He can play 3-tech interior defender. He can do all of those different things on the defensive line. Look at Jabril Peppers. He can play linebacker. He can play free safety, and he can play strong safety. If you look at Xavier McKinney, he can do the same. Free safety, strong safety. You could even move him up into the slot. All of these guys are multiple. Joe Judge and Patrick Graham love guys who can play multiple positions because it makes losing a player that much easier to cover up. If you have a guy for a specific role and they go down, it is really, really hard to compensate. Dalvin Tomlinson leaving isn't the biggest deal because the Giants feel that Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence could both play nose tackle if they needed him to. They obviously wouldn't do that, maybe Dexter, but they know that they could supplement the loss. You can't supplement a guy who plays multiple positions because finding one like that, the value sometimes isn't there. Hassan Reddick can do that. Let's say Blake Martinez went down. Hassan Reddick could go back and play middle linebacker for your defense and lead your defense if you needed him to. That's the type of player he is, but he's also a traditional pass rusher at outside linebacker. He can put up 12.5 sacks. He put up 5 sacks against the Giants. He eats against bad offensive lines, and most of the NFL has a bad offensive line, let's be honest here. That's why the positions are so highly coveted. That's why these guys get paid, because they're so rare. It's so hard to find good offensive linemen. But take a step back to the wide receiver. I just saw on Twitter right now that Albert Breer said he doesn't know if Golladay is going to wind up a Giant, and actually it's for the exact opposite reason that Anthony mentions, because the reason the things did not end well in Detroit for him. So the connection with the Giants and Kyle O'Brien or Kyle O'Quinn, whatever his name is, that could be the reason the Giants don't end up with Golladay because of that bad relationship. So actually the opposite. We don't know that yet, though. There's always a possibility that ends up being a good relationship. Maybe he's actually close with O'Quinn or O'Brien, who scouted him and got him. But the contract negotiations might not be his forte. So we'll see what happens there. But again, Curtis Samuel, I'm totally fine with Curtis Samuel. I love him as a player. Super versatile, can align Z, X, slot, running back if you needed him to. The guy averaged over 5 yards per carry as a running back. Like, what type of receiver can do that? That's incredible. So another guy I really like. So we'll see what happens there. But Anthony, what are you thinking about this recent news?
Yeah, like I said when I was talking about the Kenny Golladay thing, I had this gut feeling. I was hoping that, the things that I was saying were aligning and indicating that the Giants would land Golladay. But now, as I was saying that, literally Albert Breer decided to tweet that and totally poop all over my argument for getting Kenny Golladay, right? But I will say this. I said at that time that it's a very fluid situation. Anything can change, right? So this is very fluid. What they're hearing about the Giants and why they're surprised if Kenny Golladay winds up with them because of the Kyle O'Brien connection, it's very fluid. Come on, the Giants have shown significant interest regardless. They met with him yesterday. There's been a lot of interest generated. So it's possible that, Kyle O'Brien, that hiring could take them out of the Kenny Golladay sweepstakes. It's possible that this is just misinterpreted and Kyle O'Brien could actually help them get back into the Golladay sweepstakes. He does have the insider information, though. He knows more about Golladay than anybody in the Giants front office position. He knows that injury history. He knows how those contract negotiations went in Detroit. He knows how everything ended and went down. So that's interesting. I do want to touch on Curtis Samuel, though, since you just mentioned him. I'm also a fan of Curtis Samuel. I think he's a Swiss Army knife that could do a lot for a Giants offense that needs a playmaker. When you talk about needing a playmaker, probably talking about getting a guy who can do multiple things for your offense, go vertical, in the slot, outside, running back. Curtis Samuel is that Swiss Army knife that I think the Giants offense could really benefit from. So I like him a lot, but I think if they go Curtis Samuel, you have to again address the position in the draft because, you still need that X receiver, that true outside threat, and the Giants aren't going to get that with Curtis Samuel, in my opinion. I think they could have with Corey Davis. He winds up in New York, but with the Jets. I thought that was an interesting signing. I thought that was a really good signing by the Jets. I want to throw that out there, just give my take on that real quick. I kind of really liked Corey Davis and his fit with the Giants, but again, the Giants did not pursue any receivers in day one. They only spoke, at least we know of, to one receiver, Kenny Golladay. So I'm still going to hold out hope, but we will see. I don't know. I'm just going to hope and pray that, Albert Breer's information is wrong because I do really want to see Kenny Golladay wind up with the Giants.
Me too. I do too. I want to see Daniel Jones have a big body, a 6'4", big receiver who can make catches in the red zone too, because our red zone offense was an absolute disgrace last year. But I do want to talk about Dave Gettleman and the hate that he got today, specifically from the Giants fan base, because everybody seems to just be like, if there's something wrong, blame it on Dave. And while I enjoy that, it's kind of funny. I do think that it's fair to loop everybody in to, group them all into the situation. Joe Judge is just as much as part of this as Dave Gettleman, as Kevin Abrams. I think they're all to blame for the things that happen from here on out. From last season to present day and the future, they're a unit. This is not just Dave Gettleman. This is a unit moving forward. And the second they signed Leonard Williams, the second they signed John Ross, the entire attitude changed. And now we have money, we have a chance to get Golladay, we have a chance to get Curtis Samuel, even Hassan Reddick. So we'll see what happens there. But for the most part, I think, it only takes 1 second for things to change. And since we have that money, there are other positions that we can actually look at. For example, cornerback's a really big one right now. So like Adoree Jackson, Malcolm Butler, Xavier Rhodes, AJ Bouye. There's a ton of cornerbacks on the market right now that aren't being picked up yet. The Giants, if they're smart, will wait like a month and just scoop up a veteran guy that's good, a good veteran, on a cost-efficient deal to fill the CB2 spot. They can easily do that. They don't need a premium corner to fill that CB2 spot. Malcolm Butler, good friends with Logan Ryan, probably would recruit him here, get him on a good deal. You can be our CB2 and we'll have a sick secondary. James Bradbury, Malcolm Butler, Xavier McKinney, Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers. What more can you ask for in a secondary? And then they can hold it up while the pass rush gets after the quarterback. When you get O'Shea Ximines back, Lorenzo Carter, you got Leonard Williams, you can draft a guy. Maybe they get Alan McNeil in the second round. We'll see what happens. There's so much left to unfold. I just don't want to jump the gun and be a little bit premature with how we look at this team right now, because in a split second, they could sign 3. Everything happens in waves.
Like I said, everything is so fluid with free agency and with the Giants right now. Is there still, they made these moves. They got the Nate Solder restructure. They signed Leonard Williams. They're still probably trying to work that cap number down. They're still probably trying to restructure contracts. Everything is very fluid. The new league year starts tomorrow, 4 p.m. That's important to keep in mind. The Giants are probably going to make a lot of moves between now and then. But also, other teams are doing the same, and other teams might be trying to sign players before we get to that 4 p.m. deadline for the new league year. So, Kenny Galladay's situation is very fluid. The Giants' situation is very fluid. So, like you said, there can be new things coming up and popping up at any point. Giants could just sign 4 players as soon as we finish recording, then we got to record again, right? Everything is very fluid, so just keep that in mind with free agency. It's a hectic time. And keep in mind, there's probably going to be a lot of trades at the deadline tomorrow, 4 p.m. Expect to see like 3 trades go off because that happens every single year. I don't think the Giants will be involved with any, but you never know. Maybe they'll try and package someone and get some picks. We only have 6 picks in this year's draft. Did not get a compensatory pick. Might be wise for the Giants to try and gain some additional draft capital. Could see something like that happening at the deadline tomorrow. Keep all of that in mind. Endless possibilities with free agents right now.
Yep, and of course we still need a right guard, unless we're going to roll with Will Hernandez. There's a couple positions here that we still need to iron out. It's super interesting to see what happens in free agency. And Anthony, I've seen a couple people ask, should we go after Juju Smith-Schuster? Because he's a name that we didn't even mention. We know the antics. We know he likes to dance on people's logos. We know he likes to be very, egotistical. I don't even know egotistical is the right word. Maybe just like flamboyant with the way that he goes about himself, and just it's interesting to see, what he would be like in New York, because I don't trust the media to be very kind to him. I don't want another OBJ situation where the media is absolutely shredding this man and he can't handle it, and he's trying to fight back, and he's tweeting and he's kicking stuff and he's getting mad on the sideline. I don't want any of that. I want the Giants to be a boring old winning team. If that makes sense, I want them to just win games, not cause a ruckus, not be crazy, just win games, go into the locker room, and come back with a professionalism about them that represents New York. Don't let the media get a hold of you. I'm scared Juju Smith-Schuster might fall into that trap. But again, he is the most productive receiver out of anybody on the market. So there is an argument that he is the top guy. If you get him, you're getting a bona fide wide receiver, potentially wide receiver 1. He's super young. He can play on the outside. He can play in the slot. He maneuvers very, very well. He's a good run blocker. He's very willing in the running game. He's very willing to do whatever is necessary to help your team win. But what is his price tag like? I don't know. Anthony, what are you thinking about Juju Smith-Schuster as a potential option for the Giants?
I'm not as worried about the off-the-field stuff as most people are. I don't think that it's a huge deal. I think for him personally, he would love to get into that New York market. He could really market himself to that younger crowd. I mean, New York is the largest market in sports, other than Los Angeles. I think it actually would probably work out really well if he went to a team in Los Angeles. I think that would be huge for Juju Smith-Schuster. But realistically, he probably would love to get into that New York market, and I don't think that his TikToks and dancing antics are going to be a big problem. I think that the Giants, if they want to handle it, they will. They'll get their coaches on it. They'll tell him no more TikToks. I'm sure he'll be allowed to post TikToks, but no more dancing on logos, which I'm pretty sure he said he wasn't going to do anymore anyway. But in terms of Kenny Golladay as a player, because I think that's the more important discussion to have. Sorry, not Kenny Golladay, Juju Smith-Schuster as a player. I think that Juju going into the slot, that could be interesting for the Giants, but I think that he's a guy who's very similar to Sterling Shepard, probably a better player, younger player as well, but I think he's similar to Sterling Shepard in the fact that he excels out of the slot but can play well on the outside. But he's not necessarily what the Giants are looking for, right? Like, we keep mentioning how the Giants have made it pretty clear and obvious, especially because they called the Patriots for N'Keal Harry. They clearly want a large body who goes out there and makes contested catches. That's all that N'Keal Harry does. He can't separate for anything. He doesn't run good routes. So clearly that's what the Giants are looking for, and that's why Kenny Golladay makes a lot of sense for them. They want a guy who has a large body and can catch the ball over people, make them look very tiny. Juju Smith-Schuster isn't really that guy. Yeah, sure, he goes up there, makes some contested grabs, but really, he's a route technician, he's a route runner, does his best work out of the slot, isn't that guy who's going to line up at the X position, beat press man coverage. He's going to want that off-ball coverage. That's kind of how you scheme open Juju Smith-Schuster. You're going to need him in a zero or in the slot. So I just don't think that he's actually a scheme fit with the Giants. Clearly, there's some rumor going around that the Giants are interested, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that he is a good scheme fit for the Giants, and that's how the Giants see it. But personally, I don't see that from my analysis. Take that with a grain of salt, I guess. Take it for what you will. But personally, I don't know about Juju Smith-Schuster to the Giants. I don't think it's a great fit. I think it's probably a great fit for him as he looks to get into a very large market and brand himself and continue branding himself because he's very popular amongst younger fans. But I don't know, man. I just don't see how it works in the Giants' offensive scheme at this current day and time. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, whether one way or another, they're going to address the wide receiver position, whether it's in free agency or the draft. But, that's kind of the updates for today on free agency. Obviously, we've posted a lot of videos today getting you guys all the information we can possibly find and muster. We want you guys to be up to date. We want you guys to get instantaneous news. Obviously, we got you covered on the written website, Empire Sports Media, but we also got you covered on Twitter and on YouTube. So everything you guys need, we got you here. Really appreciate all the love today, all the attention and the following. It's really, we do it for you guys, really working our asses off to make sure you guys are up to date on everything Giants, no matter what. We're reporting all of the most accurate rumors we can possibly find. We're not reporting bullshit. We don't want to give you guys fake news. So we're here to provide you with the most accurate stuff we can possibly scour and find on Twitter and everywhere, really. So, as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning into Fireside Giants, showing all the love you did today. Hopefully the Giants can find another great player tomorrow, or even in the evening. We'll see. You never know. We'll finish up this podcast, and the second we finish it, Kenny Golladay will get signed. So you never know what's going to happen. Obviously, Free agency legally starts tomorrow. The tampering started on Monday, but legally it starts tomorrow where players can officially sign. Things always happen. You know, Anthony Barr is a good one. That happened a couple years ago. The Vikings, I think he was going to sign with another team. Then the Vikings came in and stole him away at the last second.
It was the Jets, actually. The Jets had plans to sign him to this huge mega deal, put him back at edge rusher, and then at the last second he said, I don't want to leave Minnesota. I'm re-signing with them. So, yeah, that can happen. You know, Kenny Golladay can decide tomorrow that he wants to sign with somebody, and then he can just say no. It's not official till it crosses the dotted line. That's what's important to keep in mind with all these guys who are signed. It's very unlikely that something like that happens. It's very rare that it does. It does, though. But it's a possibility. It happens sometimes.
Absolutely. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the next video.